Beitza. Okay.
Eggs for breakfast.
I'm sorry, excuse me?
Eggs for breakfast.
Yeah, yeah. Beitza, we have base hay. Based on how much says a person may not heat up water for his feet unless it is fit to be drunk. But Basil permits it, and a person may make a fire and warm himself before it. In three matters, Rebbe Gamliel is more stringent, following the view of Beit Shammai. One may not cover a cover of hot food on Yom Tov for Sabbath. One may not assemble a candelabra on Yom Tov, and one may not break bread in large loaves, but only in thin cakes. Rabbi Gamliel said, "Never in my father's house did they bake bread in large loaves, but only in thin cakes." He said, "Then what should we do about your father's house?" Who applied the stringent ruling to themselves, but the lenient ruling to all Israel, so that they might bake bread in large and thick cakes. He also said three things applying to a lenient ruling. One may sweep between the couches, one may put the spices on the fire on Yom Tov, and one may prepare a kid Mekulis on the eve of Passover. But the sages forbid this.
Okay.
Okay,
And while we're on the subject of three things that are in matters of dispute, we go on to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Shlosha dvarim Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah matir. Completely unconnected to Yom Tov. We're not talking about Beitza anymore. It's just like this has been just a tangent that the Mishnah decided to take. Okay, because we're talking about three things that are in dispute. Okay, so now Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says he's matir. The Chachamim Osrin. Paraso yotz abir tzur sheben karnea. His cow would go out with a strap between its horns. Now that he held that was an adornment. It was like clothing for the animal, and the Chachamim said it was like a masoy. It's like the animal's carrying out into the Rishos Harabim. And it wasn't actually his cow; it was his neighbor's cow. But since he paskined it, they called it his cow.
okay,
Okay. Makardin esa behema b'yom tov, and you are allowed to curry, that is to comb the sides of the animal to on Yom Tov, which I think takes out ticks and things like that. And but on the other hand, it has the side effect that it will uproot hairs.
right,
Okay. V'shochakin es hapilperin berechayim shelahem, and you're also allowed to grind peppers in the proper pepper mill. On this is a din on Yom Tov, I believe. Yes, that's a din on Yom Tov, which the Chachamim aser. Okay, now what is returning to the second case? Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Ein Makardin Esa Behema B'Yom Tov Mipnei She'oseh Chabura, because you're not allowed to comb the animal on Yom Tov because it's Behema B'Yom Tov, because it's even though yeah no, because it's likely to make a little wound on it.
right,
And that's and Rabbi Yehuda is very machmir on this. He says if it's something that could happen and it's likely to happen, then you shouldn't do it. Aval mekartzafin. So mekartzafin is again it's combing it with a wooden comb, which is because which with wider teeth, and there's not such a
that's
big
right.
touch of wounding it. The Chachamim omrim ein mekardin af lo mekartzefin. Chachamim are even more machmir than Rabbi Yehuda on this, that you can't even comb it with the wide tooth comb, because if they will permit it to kirtzuf, there he might come to comb it with the smaller one. And the halacha is like none of the above. The halacha is like Rabbi Shimon. It's actually is like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, because he permitted it, as did Rabbi Shimon. And what's the halacha that we follow? This is a fundamental argument between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon about davar she'eno miskaven, something that you don't intend.
Right.
Okay, and Rabbi Shimon says we go by kavana. Okay, if we go by kavana, then he's not intending to make a chabura. That's not what he's doing this for. Therefore, if it happens, no, it's not an issue. It's still mutter to carry on doing it. And this is, by the way, that machlokas of Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda is the same machlokas of kavana or outcome that they
Right.
had in that story where Rabbi Yehuda was praising the Romans.
Well,
Right, remember that whole thing where he's
right.
saying what wonderful things they've done. They've built aqueducts, marketplaces, all these wonderful things that they've done. And Rabbi Shimon says comes and says they've been terrible. They did this only so that they could take tolls, and they did this so they can install prostitutes and whatever.
Right.
So once again, Rabbi Yehuda here is being more makil, but it's because he's going after the outcome, and Rabbi
Right.
Shimon is being machmir because he's going after the kavanah. And then he had to go and hide in a cave and all that kind of stuff.
Right. He lets him use a pepper mill, which goes to the next mission also. I'm surprised because
Right.
pepper mill you really can't
So the pepper
grind
mill,
again.
right. The pepper mill that he was allowing you to grind with, um, B'rechaim Shalahem, Af al pi she'hen gedolos, and there's a lot of effort in it. Yeah, well, in that case, we don't paskin like him. We do paskin like the Chachamim on the pepper mill.
Mm.
Okay, and speaking of pepper mills, now we go into another tangent off the tangent. Harechaim shall pipalim tamea. So the pepper mill that we're talking about is susceptible to tumah. Mishum shlosha kalim. And this Mishnah honestly belongs in Maseches Kalim because it's got nothing to do with Yom Tov. It's just saying that there are three separate kalim, and each of them can independently become tameh. Right? Mishum kli kibble because of the receptacle that holds the pepper. Mishum kli matechos because of the metal part that does the grinding. Mishum kli kavara. And sorry, the kli kavara is the middle part which is made of wood, um, which removes the dust.
Mm.
And so there's like a filter part of it. And
Right.
that itself is a separate receptacle. So all three of these parts are independently susceptible to tumor. Okay, that little diversion aside, we now well now we've been talking about which kalim can become tame. So hey, let's just go ahead. Egla shel katan, the agala shel katan, a child's little pool cart, tamei midras. It is susceptible to tumas midras, because a child can sit in it. Right? It's a little wagon that he sits in, and his friend pulls him around. So, so that is susceptible to midrash tumah. If a child is a zav, or if an adult who's a zav puts his foot on it and rests his foot on it, that becomes tamei midrash. When it teres b'Shabbos, it is also not muktzah on Shabbos because it can be used on Shabbos, not a problem. Ve'ena nigreres ela al gabe kelim, but it must be dragged over some sort of cloth. It can't be dragged over the ground. And guess who's having this machlokes again? Rabbi Yehuda Omer kol hakelim ein nigraim chutz min ha'agala mipnei shehi koveshes. Um, so Rabbi Yehuda says that in general things cannot be dragged on the ground on Shabbos and Yom Tov, except for the agala because it's mutter to drag it over the ground because she koveshes. It pushes down the ground and the dust is pushed down. But it doesn't actually move the dust from its place. But even so, he's this is his opinion, by the way, that he said that it still has to be done over kalim, over in order not to
Right.
not make a ditch. And
There's
Rabbi
a, there's
Shimon,
a,
and once again, Rabbi Shimon is going to get up over here and say, "This is a davar she'eino miskaven. Why are we making a fuss about it? Nobody's got. If you're pulling a cart, nobody's got any intention to make a ditch. You just want to get from place A to place B." And this again is the halacha, like Rabbi Shimon, that we said that davar she'eino miskaven is mutar.
okay.
Okay, so but just to be clear, that's as distinct from a psik reisha. Difference between a psik reisha and a davar she'eino miskaven is a psik reisha is inevitable, while a davar she'eino miskaven is merely likely. Okay, so dragging, so for example, if you're pulling a cart and it's uprooting the grass, and you can see it's uprooting the grass, but it's not inevitable that you're going to uproot grass when you drag it, because you could lift it up a little bit and carry it a little more carefully, and it wouldn't go through the and wouldn't uproot the grass. So if you're pulling the thing, and even if you see that it has uprooted grass, you're still allowed to carry on. But psic ratio, where it is inevitable that something is going to happen, as inevitable as if you cut off the chicken's head, it's going to die. That's why it's called a psic ratio. Then even Rabbi Shimon is going to say that's aser completely. That could be even be d'oraisa if it's on a melacha d'oraisa. So
Well, you can't drag a table on the ground. It's gonna make a furrow. It's gonna
if you
you can pick
know
it up.
if it's inevitable, if it's such a heavy table that you know for sure it's going to make a ditch, then Rabbi Shimon will agree. That's not a davar she'ein kaven. That's
You
that's a
should pick it up.
psikrasha.
That's a
That's
different
called
story.
psikrasha. But if it's a light bench that doesn't necessarily make a tunnel, then Rabbi Yehuda still says it's aser, and Rabbi Shimon says it's mutar, and that's the halacha.
Okay. Sukkah.
Yeah.
Hey Gimel. Hey base. I'm sorry.
Base.
At the conclusion of the first day of the festival, they would go down to the court of the women and make a great improvement there. There were golden candlesticks there, and the four golden bowls on top of them, and four ladders for each one, and four boys among the young priests, and their hands, and in their hands with jugs of oil holding 120 logs, which they would pour into each bowl. From the worn-out trousers of the Kohanim and their belts, they would make wicks, and from these they would kindle. And there was not a court in Yerushalayim that was not illuminated by the light of the house of the water drawing. The pious and the good men of good deeds would dance before them, holding burning torches in their hands, and would cite before them words of praise and song and praise. The Levites would play harps, lyres, cymbals, trumpets, and innumerable musical instruments on the 15 steps leading from the court of the Israelites to the court of the women, which would correspond to the 15 songs of the ascents in the book of Psalms, on which the Levites would stand with their instruments and sing songs. And the two Kohanim would stand at the uppermost gate, which leads down from the court of the Israelites to the court of the women, and the two trumpets in the hands. The cock crowed, and they blew tekiah, teruah, kotia, tekiah, and when they reached the 10th step, they blew tekiah, teruah, tekiah. When they reached the court, they blew tekiah, teruah, tekiah. They would continue to blow until they reached the gate leading eastward. When they reached the gate leading out eastward, they would then turn their faces to the west and declare, "Our fathers who are in this place turn their backs to the temple and their faces to the east," and they would bow eastward to the sun. As for us, our eyes are turned to the Lord, Rabbi Yehuda says, and they would repeat and say, "We are for God, and to God our eyes." Okay. Okay, you're behaving yourself, be good over there. Not you, I meant the cat. So, okay. We have Yoma and we have Gimel. No person may enter the courtyard for service, even if he is tahor, until he immerses himself in a mikvah. On this day, the Kohen Gadol would immerse himself 5 times and wash his hands and feet 10 times, and all of them in the holy atop the public chamber, except for this one only. They spread a linen sheet between him and the people. He undressed, descended, immersed himself, ascended, and dried himself. They brought him golden vestments, and he donned them, and he washed his hands and feet. They brought him the day of the offering. He made the incision and another completed the slaughter for him, and received the blood in a vessel and threw it. He entered the temple to burn the morning incense and to prepare the lamps of the menorah. He offered the head and the limbs, the kavita meal, the kavita meal offering and the wine. The morning incense was offered every day between the throwing of the blood and the offering of the limbs of the daily offering, that of the afternoon between the offering of the limbs and the nisachim. If the Kohen Gadol was old or delicate, they warmed water for him and poured it into the cold water so it did not lose its chill.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, back to
Did you
Shabbos.
understand that? Did you understand that? Okay. Not you. I meant the cat.
I know.
All right. I want to make sure you
You
knew
wouldn't have
that.
spoken to me like that.
Okay. We have Shabbos, and we are on Kuf Aleph. A cask which is broken, we may save from it enough food for these 3 meals. And one may say to the others, "Come and save for yourselves." However, we may not soak it up with a sponge. We may not break fruits to extract juice from them. And even if they float out by themselves, then they are prohibited. Yehuda says if they were intended for food, the juice that flows from them is permitted, but if they were intended for juice, what flows from them is prohibited. Honeycombs which one crushed before Shabbos and the honey that flowed out by itself are prohibited. If Elazar, however, permits them. Anything that was put in hot water before Shabbos may be soaked in hot water on Shabbos, and anything that was not put in hot water before Shabbos may be rinsed in hot water on Shabbos, except an old salted fish, small salted fish, or a Spanish mackerel, because the rinsing completes the preparation. A person may break open a cask to eat dried figs from it, provided he does not intend to make a vessel. We may not perforate the bung of a cask. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. The comment, however, permitted, but one may not perforate it on its side. If it was perforated, one may not place wax upon it because it's smooth. Rabbi Yehuda says an incident came before Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai in Arab, and he said, I fear on his account that he may be liable for a sin offering. Okay. Does your cat sit like this? They sit all the time with you? Your cats?
Sometimes. I've only got one.
Oh, that's right, you're lucky. Paya. If a person sows his field with one kind, even if he does sow two threshing floors, he gives one paya. If he sowed it with two types, even though he did so with one threshing time, he gives it a payal. If a person sows his field with two types of wheat,
he gives two payas is the point, yeah.
Right. If he gives two payouts, if a person sows his field with two types of wheat, he does it in one threshing time. He gives one payout, two threshing times, he gives two payouts. If once happened that Rabbi Shimon of Mitzvah sold before Rabbi Gamliel, and they came to the guys at the chamber when they asked Nachum the scribe. Nachum the scribe said, I received from Rabbi Mayasha, who received from the father, who received from Pears, who received from the prophets, the law given to Moshe at Sinai regarding the person who sows his field with two types of wheat. If he did them in one threshing floor, he gives one payah. Two threshing floors, he gives two payah. A field that non-Jews reap, ants have bitten, and the window kind of broke is exempt. If he reaped half of it and robbers reaped half of it, it is exempt for the obligation to pay as fulfilled with standing corn. Oh boy, confusing me, buddy. Midos. Okay, Aleph base. The Dal. Oh my God, Daled base. The great had two minor doors, one in the north and one in the south. The one to the south, no man entered through it. The reason for this is explained by the prophet Ezekiel, that is stated, Hashem said to me, this gate shall be closed, it shall not be opened, the man shall not come through it, because Hashem, the God of Israel, comes through it, it shall be closed. He took the key and opened the minor doorway and entered the cell, and from the cell he went to the Hakel. Rabbi Jesus says he would walk within the thickness of the Hakel's wall until he found standing between the Hakel's two sets of doors, and he opened the outer doors to the inside, the inner doors to the outside. 38 cells were there, 15 in the north, 15 in the south, 8 in the west, those in the north and the south, 5 cells on top of 5 and 5 on top of them. And those in the west, 3 cells on top of 3 and on top of 2 of them, two on top of them. Each cell had 3 openings, one to the cell on the right, one to the cell on the left, and one to the cell above it. But in the cell in the northeast corner, there were 5 openings, one to the cell on the right, one to the cell above it, one to the winding ramp, and one to the minor doorway, and one to the Hakel. The cells at the bottom level were 5 amos wide, and with a ledge was 6 amos. The cell of the middle level was 6 amos wide, and with a ledge was 7 amos. The cells at the top level were 7 amos wide, as it is stated. The lowest cell, 5 amos, was its width. The middle one, 6, and was its width, and the third one, 7 amos, was its width. Okay.
That's
one more go, buddy. One more. Okay. All right. Just hang in there. Okay. Het Dalet. If one exchanges a cow for a donkey and calves, and similarly, if one sells its maidservant and she gives birth, this one says it happened before I sold, while this one says it happened after I bought, they divide. If he had 2 slaves, one large and one small, and similarly, they had 2 fields, one large and one small, the buyer claims he bought the large one, while the other one says that he does not know, he received the larger one. If the seller says he sold the small one, while the other one says he does not know, he receives only the small one. If this one claims it was a large one, while this one claims it was a small one, the seller must swear that he sold the small one, and if both say they do not know, they divide. If one sells his olive trees for wood, and they produce less than a quarter log for saw, these belong to the owner of the olive trees. If they produce a quarter log for saw, and this one claims my olive trees produced it, while this one claims my land produced it, they divide. If a river washed away his olive trees and placed them in the midst of his neighbor's field, and this one claims my olive trees produced them, while this one claims the land produced them, they divide. If one rents a house to his neighbor, he cannot evict him in the winter from Sukkot until Pesach, unless he gives him notice in the summer, 30 days in 30 days. In big cities, both in the summer and winter, he must give 12 months' notice. With stores, both in towns and cities, he must give 12 months' notice. And Shimon ben Gamliel said within bakeries or dye shops, he must give 3 years' notice. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Good. Okay.